Oh my God. I
I,
was gonna wear an orange hat.
oh, okay, then I'm gonna put this on.
Hang
Uh,
on, I'm gonna put mine on too. Hang on.
okay,
Hang on.
I
I
love.
was wearing it until just a minute ago, and then I was like, she doesn't want to see me in an orange hat.
Yes, I do.
Everybody, this is Samantha Irby, the amazing, the incomparable. Everybody say hi and send up a bunch of hearts, and then I'm deleting you all so that you don't interrupt her face with your commentary because I actually want to see her face. Everyone's on the edge of their seat. Look at all those hearts, Sam. They all love you.
I love them.
Well,
I love that they think you're about to have a conversation with a smart person.
why are we wearing matching orange hats? I'm representing the Strand bookstore today. That is my favorite bookstore, so that's why I'm wearing.
In the
Um,
of oversharing, which is what the entirety of my work is. This hat is from, I think, a place called Big Hat Company.
no, it's not.
Yes, it is. Because I'm a big head. Like the tyranny of small hats. Like I live in Michigan. It's cold.
Yeah.
Wearing a small hat. Um, I can't not wear a hat, and wearing a small hat makes me feel it's like a vice grip on my head. So I had to Google like extra large beanies.
Which feels like if you Google that, you're accidentally going to come up on some very specific porn.
With if
Like it's some term like beanies is some term we didn't know. Like, and we're like, is that what the kids are calling that now? Is
yeah,
that what that is?
hats, I'm getting like a bunch of scat porn or whatever. Like, they're like, in this community we call poop beans.
I was about yeah, exactly. I was about to say 4 minutes into the conversation and we're already talking about scat porn. So anybody who is concerned that this conversation was going to get too literary.
Yeah. Oh no, all of your very kind, very smart readers absolutely logging the fuck off. They're like, oh, sorry, we didn't know you were talking to an idiot.
Log off at your own risk, you guys, because this is the best, the best, the best. Also, we only want people here who want to be here, and those are the good people.
Oh, we're gonna get down to like 5.
But those 5 will be, it's like Oprah said, you don't need a million friends, you just need one really good one. So, like, those 5 will be our Gail.
Yeah, yeah, our Gail. I love that people are free at 2 in the afternoon. I thought
Isn't
it was
that
like me.
well? I mean, you don't want to be geocentric. A lot of these people are from other places.
Liz, I don't know if you know, but I'm from America. They don't care
Yeah,
about other places.
we don't do anything about other places. Also, I just sounded like literally the entire internet. I once made the mistake of wishing
I
someone happy solstice online, and they were like, "It's not summer solstice everywhere, Liz. There's another hemisphere." I was like, "Okay, internet, calm down, everybody."
oh boy. I have to lead with like, hey, I have a public school education. That's it. So that people don't expect me to know things like where the summer solstice. I don't even know when the year. So
I have so much that I want to talk to you about and
yeah,
all of your brilliance. And I have a public school education also. But and
yeah.
another thing that you and I share is that we didn't study writing. Um, so I just want to put that out there to everybody who's about to sell a kidney to go to a $900,000 writing school. Samantha Irby and Liz Gilbert can tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
First of all, you just made me think of that kidney story, which was wild as hell, especially because both of them are the villain. I was like, oh, I can't decide who I hate more in like that art friend story. But yes, you don't have to have an MFA or a BA or anything to write.
Well, what you do have to be in your case, though, is a fucking genius, which is what you are. And now I'm gonna just don't. I know how you get. This is the uncomfortable part where you have to listen to me
Okay.
tell everybody, including you, what I think of you, which is this. So only give anybody who doesn't know Samantha Irby, let me give you the sort of formal introduction. I have to read it because I want to make sure that I, said everything. She's a number one New York Times bestselling author, blogger, essayist, book critic, television connoisseur, and writer, national treasure, hero to thousands, millions. She rose to stardom with her blog, Bitches Gotta Eat, which, if you're not following it, I don't even know who you are or why you're not. She's the author of the books Meaty, New Year, Same Trash, We Are Never Meeting in Real Life, and the most recent one, Wow, No Thank You. She also has the best titles of books of anybody in the literary world. Um, when her book came out during the pandemic, Wow, No Thank You, the New York Times headline of the rave review said, the wildly funny Samantha Irby is back and not a moment too soon. That's like even before they got into the review. So agreed, never too soon to have Samantha Irby. She's been a writer and a co-producer on Shrill, Work in Progress, many other TV shows. She's got a deal in process, last I heard, with FX, along with our friend and hero, Abby Jacobson, for a book based or a show based on Meaty. She also speaks and writes openly and disarmingly about living with Crohn's disease, about her harrowing childhood, her father's alcoholism, her mother's MS, about poverty, about her own anxiety and depression. That's the official kind of like who Sam Irby is.
That
Some of
makes
that might not be up to date, but that's what Wikipedia says.
uh, oh, somebody, I don't know who wrote, I can't Google myself or read reviews, positive or negative. I cannot consume any information about myself, or I will go down a rabbit hole. You know what happens to me? Like, I hear someone's reaction to me, and then I want to convince them that no, I'm actually like nice, and you would like me if you talk to me. So I can't I don't even get mad. I'm like, they're right. I'm terrible. Yep. How can I convince them that they would actually like me if we sat together? So I don't read anything, and I don't know who wrote that Wikipedia entry, but I assume it's someone at Random House, like probably.
Well, I kind of did add to it a little bit with my own stuff, but that's what my personal assistant, whose name is Liz Gilbert, found out when she went and did the official thing. I think you're very wise not to read reviews. I don't read them either. Not even the good ones. It's so confused. It's confusing to be praised. It's confusing to be hated. And I like what John Irving said, that reading your own book review is like eating a sandwich that might have some broken glass in it. And you can't know. It might not, and it might
Even
have that.
like the
It's
positive one,
so
like, I
hard.
read other people's reviews, like of course. Um, and even the positive ones I know have a
Yeah.
thing that I'm like, oh, if that was me, that would live inside me until I die.
Yep.
Like that one little comment, I would take it to the grave.
I
And
also think you should write a book with the title, I Know You Would Like Me If You Met Me.
notebook right here. I'm going to write that down. I am on a deadline. Well, I am going to miss a deadline that I have in December to turn in a new book. And I'm still at the stage where I'm like, what should I write about? And it's October 27th. So I have a notebook here just in case you say anything that I feel like
Just have it be this interview, printed with really wide margins and a big font, and there's your manuscript.
yeah,
It's done.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I have so many directions I want to go in, but first that was the kind of Wikipedia download of who Sam Irby is. But for everybody who's not familiar with your work, and also I want to tell you this because I want to tell you this. What you are to me, and the reason that I chose this book, which is what we're discussing today, We Are Never Meeting in Real Life. I could have chosen any number of Sam's books. I've got them all. I love them all. But this one has a very precious place, not only in my heart and in my mind, but on the bookshelf behind me. So this, I live in a tiny apartment. I used to live in a big house, and I used to have a billion books. And then after my partner died, I was like, why do I have all this stuff? And I made my life really small, and I live in a 540 square foot apartment. And that is my forever bookshelf. And that is only the books that I will keep forever. And this book is on that forever bookshelf. And I want you to know that it's alphabetized and it shows up right between, this is where you are in my pantheon. You're right between Ishiguro's Remains of the Day, Irby, and then Henry James' Portrait of the Lady.
Oh,
that is the company that you keep on my bookshelf. That is how much I revere this book. It is like on my forever list. I've bought so many copies for people. And if I were ever to teach again, which I don't know if I ever will, but if I were ever to teach, I would teach this book. Because that's who you are to me. Like, that is what a brilliant writer I think you are. And that is where you belong. You belong on my forever bookshelf.
it's such high praise, especially because I know like the behind the scenes of being an author who sells more than, 17 books is that you just get sent tons of books, and deciding what to read and what to keep is a problem that I have. I just keep everything. I don't know if you can see behind me, but that's just a small
Oh,
wrap
yeah, I see.
of all the books in this house. So that is a huge honor.
Well, I used to keep everything, and now I only keep the Eternals. And the thing that I want to, like, you describe yourself as someone who writes butt jokes on the internet, and you have so many disclaimers about what you're not, and yet you are a writer who has a capacity. You can do this thing, and you do it again and again and again, that you do in your essays. Um, and I wouldn't even know how to teach this because I don't know if it can be taught. But it's almost like, let me figure out if I can describe it. When I'm reading one of your essays, I feel like you've got four screens open at the same time in your brain from four completely different emotional quadrants. And somehow you're putting it all in one sentence, in one paragraph, so that there's like ridiculous humor at the like layered, like sentence by sentence, right next to the most devastating pathos. And then right next to that is incredible vulnerability. And then right next to that is this huge hearted humanity. And it's like those are the four quadrants, and they're always open. And it's all happening at the same time. And I'm like, how is she doing this? How is she doing this? How is she doing this in one? And I'm gonna just reach for one of your essays that I love so much from. This is the one where when I first read this book, I was like, oh, this is not how anybody else writes. Like, nobody else could do this. And it's an essay called A Christmas Carol. Um, and if those of you who haven't read this, this is the one about this is the one about when Sam had her 1 year at college. And it's also got one of the first lines ever. My freshman year of college, I accidentally became best friends with a couple of grade A douchebags. Best first line. And it's about these guys, John and Adam, this bro and this bra, these like white dudes at this, like just already doomed to, just how somehow these two dudes became your best friends in college. So first, when you start reading it, you start thinking just from that first line that it's going to be about like you lowering your standards to be friends with people who were not worthy of you, and then them turning out to be dickheads and learning how to deal with broke. It's going to be sort of that. And then you become really, really good friends with them. And then you're like, oh, this is taking a direction that I wasn't expecting. And then you go home with them for a family holiday, and you get a horrible diarrhea attack in the highway, and they have to pull the car over while you have explosive diarrhea on the side of the road. And then you think it's going to become a story about humiliation. And then comes this giant hearted thing where you realize it's a story about friendship and loyalty, because one of the guys, as he's like holding your leg up the side of the car and you're digging a hole to have, as the freeway is going by and having this what should be this incredibly humiliating moment, is coaching and cheering you on and shouting like, you're a genius, I love you, you got this, you're amazing. And then you realize it's this incredible story about like true love. And so many of your essays do this where you're like, what's going on here? Like, this isn't, none of this should be happening. She shouldn't be friends with these guys in the first place. Then it shouldn't turn into this humiliation shouldn't have happened, but then the humiliation shouldn't flip into this redemptive story that's actually about love. And anyway, how do you do that? That's a long first question.
What if I had like a neat, succinct answer? You'd be
If
like,
you do,
he's
I'll be so amazed.
I think, okay, I'm gonna answer a few things. First, I think sometimes, or one of the things that this is gonna sound weird. One of the things that I like about myself, is that I truly can befriend anyone. I have all types of friends. I am open to friendship with literally like any kind of person, right? So like at the beginning of that essay, I see these douchebags. They were like the first guys I saw on the floor, and I mean, I'm never scared. I'm not like a puppy. I'm not gonna run up and be like, hi, hi, hi. But the minute they were friendly to me, I was like, okay,
Right.
great. I'm friends with this dude who like has a Budweiser belt buckle or I like him. And so I like to write sort of about these relationships that I've had with people that, like, if you flip the book over, right, and look at my picture on the back, that's not who, you know, people's like snap judgments or whatever. You don't think that the person who wrote that is going to be friends with these guys. And I love sort of talking about these relationships I've had with people where when you see us together, you're like, what? How do you know each other? One of my favorite games to play on the street is to see people who couples or groups that I like think are like incongruous, where you're like, how does she know him? And like make up a backstory for how they know each other. So I love to do that. When I'm writing, well, first of all, I always like know how a thing is going to end. Like I can't write an essay, I can't start it if I don't know where it's going. And then my favorite thing to do is to sort of take a circuitous route to the end, where I'm like, okay, the story is this. The story is I met these guys, we became friends, we drove home for Christmas break, I had diarrhea on the side of the highway, right? Like that's like the beginning, the middle, and the end. But then I can never not um, tap into all of my inside feelings, you know? And so, like, yes, I'm going to tell that story, but also I'm going to talk about how all my friends went to like colleges with like quads. I went to Northern Illinois, which is in the middle of a cornfield, like 60 miles west of Chicago. And like my friends were going to like campuses and like places that had football games, like all this stuff, you know, like either smart schools or like big schools. And then I was going to this, you know, unremarkable, no shade to any of my Husky brethren. And so it's like, I want to talk about that. And also I want to talk about how going home like was sort of fraught for me because I didn't have an experience to talk about, because I was going to go home and listen to all my friends talk about, you know, what Yale was like. And I was going to be like, oh, hey, you know, the McDonald's in the basement.
We have a really good vending machine in our hallway.
Yeah, I once got free fries from the McDonald's in the basement of the student center. It's like, I want to, because yeah, you could just tell a story. Anyone can just tell a story. But I want all of the like, what did you feel? And what were you thinking about? And, you know, I want all that extra stuff, which is, I think, a thing, you know, people who don't like my stuff, like is a problem for people, where it's like, you know, she told a story with 5,000 words that could have been told with 2,000. And it's like, sure, But then you leave all like the nuances out and the jokes out and the things that make you care about the action. I want to put all of that in, and I feel like if I start when I'm writing, I don't know if you, I just like think about a reader, and I'm like, I'm telling this person
Yeah.
this, and they'll like know me. And I mean, really, everything I write is just a plea for people to like love me, right? So it's like, I want to
Same.
I will give you the things that'll make you love me. Because yeah, I could tell you a funny story, but that won't like make your heart beat for me. I got to tell you like all the other stuff I was going through, and that like school wasn't that great for me, and I wasn't having a great time, and like that made the friendship with these dudes a little deeper because they were sort of like my port in the storm. And so I think that all I just like to throw, and luckily for me, my editor is loves it too. But I like to throw all the other stuff in because, like, sure, we're gonna get to the point, but like, let's take a stroll on our way to the point. So I don't know
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
answers your question, but
It does, and I love that you have an editor who is smart enough to not get in the way of that, you know?
oh yeah,
Yeah,
he knows that like you got to wait till the end to see how it all comes together.
yeah.
And, sometimes she gets to the end and she's like, "You lost your way," and then we go back.
And you're like, wait, was I driving? Am I supposed to be
We spent
driving
a lot of
this?
time like noodling on the details that don't matter. Can we get back
But
to the
the
part?
details, okay, I have so much to say about the book, but I just want to give people who might not be as familiar with your work an example of like where you go with details. Let me see if I can find this. It's about Judge Mathis. Um, so one
But
of the things,
I,
oh my God. So one of the things that I love about Sam Irby is that she has a newsletter, what are those things called that the people have these sub
Substack.
substack sub like, sub basement sub, it's a new thing I
I
haven't done yet. But
me, but like everybody else had one, and I was like, okay, okay.
yeah, but yours rules.
Whole approach to social media, and I'm like, oh, what, Twitter? You said? Oh, I'll get on that, sure.
I'm a last adapter and I'm also a last responder. It's like career choice that I have. I'm always behind on everything. But anyway, Sam Irby has a Substack, everybody, that is called "Who's on Judge Mathis This Week," and it is a play-by-play breakdown of the incredible. Could you actually take a minute and explain to everybody what and who Judge Mathis is in case they don't know?
Yes.
Okay.
Judge Gregory Ellis Mathis is a Detroit judge who he used to be in a gang when he was young, and he went to jail. And then, oh, I'm gonna mess this up. Hopefully, he's not watching. But uh,
He's definitely part of my Eat, Pray, Love demographic of readers.
sorry, sir, if I fuck up your origin story. But he went to jail. A guy came to speak to the guys in jail and was like a motivational speaker type, I think, or maybe a lawyer. I was like, get your shit together. When you get out of jail, go to college and become a lawyer. And he did that. It's a very compressed version. He did that. And then he became a judge, and he was a judge in the Detroit Circuit Court for a long time. And then he got this show, which is like your boilerplate, like, court show. Everybody knows, what those are like, except he is incredibly funny and charismatic. He's also like unapologetically himself. He also is not very like lawyerly. Like he's a little, it's sort of like if your uncle, like if your drunk uncle ran a courtroom. And so I started watching it. I'm from Chicago originally, or Evanston, but I'm from Chicago originally. And it films in Chicago.
Yeah.
It was like a phenomenon. It's been on for 20 years. It was like a phenomenon. And my friends and I went to a bunch of tapings. And
Wait, you did?
mm,
Wait, didn't you see your old landlady in the audience recently in an episode?
if you are from Chicago, you have been to see Judge Mathis. I mean, I don't know about the entire population, but I assume that everybody's been at least once. And I was like obsessed with it. I love him. He's so funny. He's so charismatic. And so fast forward to a couple years ago, I was home. I had stopped blogging because I wasn't doing enough to blog about all the time. I was like, well, I'm home like with the cats. I just moved to Michigan to be with my wife, and I was just like kind of flailing. You're not working on a book all the time. At least I'm not. Like, I work on a book when I have a deadline for a book, but the rest of the time I'm like, what should I do?
What's in the refrigerator today? Or since 5 minutes ago? That's my thing. I'm like, what do you think is going to be in there that wasn't in there 5 minutes ago? Okay, anyway, go ahead.
Well, I'm like, what are people on Instagram doing? And then I scroll for 20 minutes, and then it's 2 hours later, and my phone's dying. But I tweeted, if I wrote about Judge Mathis every day, or if I wrote about who was on Judge Mathis, would people read it? Because I had started this newsletter because other people had started newsletters, quickly abandoned it because I couldn't think of things to write about. And then I'm very good with a prompt. So if I did this, would you read this? And so many people said yes. And then I just started writing it, and I figured out like a template, to make things easier. And I just started doing it, and more people signed up for it.
It's
And now
so good. It's
50
so good.
people get that email, and it blows my mind every time. It does not blow my mind when people unsubscribe. I get it. But so
I
many people don't even watch the show.
I
They have
have to no,
like,
I don't need to. I don't want to watch the show. I want to watch you watch the show.
yeah,
And my this is going out to my friend Cheryl, Cheryl Louise Moeller, who I feel like the Judge Mathis Substack newsletter from you got both of us through a lot of the pandemic, and we send each other screenshots of things that you have said. It's like a really big deal in our lives, but this is an example that I want to give of like where you go in a paragraph, and you do this in a newsletter, but you also do this in your essays. And this is a description. I could just live, like, if I knew I had like one day to live, I would just want an anthology that was nothing but the descriptions of what people are wearing, which you nail every single
that.
time. I mean, can you put that in December? Just the descriptions. So this is a recent example. Plaintiff, Yehuda from Chicago, Illinois. Yehuda is dressed for a wild night at Excalibur, circa 2009. Shiny silver satin buttonless blazer, pale lavender v-neck, thick silver rope chain twinkling under the harsh studio lights, the brightness of the links rivaled only by the heavily gelled swoop of hair. I used to party at dark holes in the wall like Slicks and Lava Lounge, but on the occasions that I found myself coaxed out to a fancy club by someone who didn't know me very well, it would be teeming with this kind of coked up, put three more Jaeger bombs on my tab kind of guy, and wow, 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 do I miss going to the club? That's how the sentence ends. Like it begins here, and then it ends like way over here. But the ride is just so delightful to be on.
One thing I try to do, and I think this relates to something you said earlier, is I don't ever want to put anyone down.
It's so great the way you. That's what I want to say. You're a champion of every person who's on that show.
Yeah, I'm not like condescending. I don't ever look at someone and think like, I know better than them. Because I have had that, as someone who grew up like, poor and, with fucked up teeth. Like, I don't ever I never look at anyone. There's always like something to celebrate. And I think I could, if I were a different person, I could come at the Judge Mathis recaps like on my high horse, like shitting on these people arguing over, $78 or whatever it is, But I love that. I mean, I love them. They all look great. I want to know what everyone is wearing.
And you often want to know how they know each other. You're like, sometimes you're like, how do these two people know each other before the case begins? And then
I
you find out like, oh, they're lovers. Crazy. Like
I could get before the case, you know, breakdown of how they know each other, where they met, who they met through, I would die happy. I'll tell you a secret. It's not really a secret, but I'll share it with you and all of our friends who are watching. I had a meeting with the Judge Mathis people. I got a call from
what?
David at Warner Brothers. He left a message on our house machine. I don't even know how he got the number, but he was like, "Hey, so I'm with the Judge Mathis show, and I'd love to talk to you. Please call us back." And at first I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna call him back because he's gonna like tell me they're suing me, right? Like,
Yeah, of course.
I have infringed on something." But I did call back. Curiosity got the best of me, and I did call back, and he was very nice. And he was like, "Oh, we're huge fans. We told Greg about your newsletter." And I was like, you know, melting. And then I did a Zoom with like the producers and stuff. We were trying to figure out, you know, some little extra stuff I could do in the newsletter. Stay tuned. But one of the things I said, I was like, is there a way that I could like talk to people after the case? And they were like, we can work that out for you.
Oh my God.
I was like, the one question I most want to know is like, how did you guys know each other?
Yeah.
You know, like that's what I want to ask people, because that's like the stuff I'm interested in, which is the thing I try to do when I'm writing, is like to answer those little questions that like may get lost. That's all the stuff I'm interested in. Like, how did you meet this person? How
Yeah.
did you come to lend him the very specific amount of 1,300? Like, I want to know.
How did somebody convince you that dating that waitress, cocktail waitress who was 72 years younger than you, was a really good financial move on your part? Oh God.
You know, I don't want to be a therapist, but if I could be this very specific kind of therapist where I talk to these people about both sides of their case, that would sustain me.
That would be a great service to the world, I think. Also, and
Especially if I can
hey,
write.
they say do what you love, Sam.
against that. I'd have to figure it out. I could be like Dr. Phil, except, you know, better.
I like where that went. So I want to talk to you about like the single most common question that I get when people are talking about memoir writing, you know, which is what you do a lot of, is how do you tell the truth when the truth involves other people, namely, especially your family? How do you reveal these things? What's the impact when you reveal these things? And so whenever I have a memoirist on, I always want to talk to them about how they handled that. And I also just want to read this is a book, again, for people who are just tuning in, We Are Never Meeting in Real Life by Samantha Irby, which is, you know, everybody, you know, the words hysterical, hilarious, like it's, you know, true, like funny, you're like a humorist. But it's so, those words are all, they're not big enough for what you do. And because you will drop into some very funny essay, this paragraph, for instance, about your father, where you say, first, a little bit of background. Samuel Bishop Irby was the kind of alcoholic who made grain alcohol in our bathtub and sold what he didn't drink in Sunny D bottles to the local degenerates and his crew. Samuel Bishop Irby was the kind of alcoholic who would drink 3 bottles of NyQuil if my mother forbade his going to the liquor store and hid his car keys where he was too drunk to think of looking for them. Samuel Bishop Irby was the kind of alcoholic who, when desperate for a fix and home alone with his pre-adolescent daughter and an empty liquor cabinet, would soak a loaf of bread with shoe polish and drink whatever he could filter through the loaf into a glass. SB, as his friends call him, was handsome and charming and affable, and he had the greatest laugh you've ever heard. But SB was also broken, just totally broken, and I couldn't grow up around him. It wasn't safe. You know, that, first of all, is a paragraph that belongs in a book that isn't being heralded on the back as like a work of comic genius. Like it belongs in a whole other category of writing. But because you are so funny, you know, you read something like that and you get this like stabbing in the heart, and then you pick it up and you move it to this other place emotionally. But I want to just ask you how you determined what to say about who to say, um, what the reaction is in your family to you sharing these kinds of stories, because everybody I know, Cheryl Strayed, who similarly to you, has said that she felt like she was very lucky as a writer that her mother was dead.
Mm-hmm.
It made life easier, and I've said many times that every writer I know is waiting for one very particular person to die so that they can be free to tell a certain story that they don't feel safe to tell until that person is gone. But you also have living family members. So anyway, talk about that. Talk about writing about family and yeah, I've said
Well,
enough.
so the first, no, I could listen to you talk all day. Um,
Mm,
the first thing is that both my parents are dead. They both died when I was 18, like 6 months apart from each other, not together. I have to remember to say that because people are like, "Oh, were they in an accident?" And I'm like, "The cosmic one." Like, no. It's easy when they're dead. I make the joke, that I killed them so that I could start writing, which I find funny.
I
Not
think it's funny. I don't know what's not funny about that.
um,
Show me where that's not funny. This
so
one gets it.
it's easy when they're dead, right? Like, what are they gonna fucking do? I mean, maybe they're haunting me, but like, I don't know. So that's like the first thing that I'm just like, all bets are off. Whatever I say about my parents, fine. Um, Second, I I have, and I'm sure you go through this too. I have to have a legal read on all my
Yeah.
books. Like everybody who writes like true stuff has to. And the first time I had one, I talked to the lawyer on the phone, and he said, and this is like in my mind all the time now. He was like, "Listen, things that happen to you belong to you. It doesn't matter who else is in the story.
Right.
It's your story too, and you can tell your story." Um, because truly, I'm only ever really worried about like legal ramifications.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think my sisters are going to drag me into court, but if they tried, I want to make sure that I would win. Um, and so, and he told me like what you're allowed to reveal about a person and what.
Wait, can you tell me this? Because no one's had this conversation with me and I live in fear.
Yeah, he was like, you can't out someone, and like in any capacity. Like you can't tell like if someone has a disease that they're hiding. You can't talk about that. It like would be wise not to talk about crimes other people have committed because then you could get implicated in like the telling of the crime. And he was like, basically, you know, we'll change names if we need to, but everything else is fair game. So then you get to the point, or at least I get to the point of like, okay, what could damage my relationship with a person?
Hmm.
So our family is incredibly small. I have three sisters. Two of them have kids, and like that's basically it. So there are very few people to piss off or offend. My sisters don't read my books. And I think they're a lot older than I am. And I, I mean, we all had terrible childhoods. Mine was particularly bad. And I think they all have sort of taken the position of like, hey, you survived that. No thanks to us. So you can have this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's a guilt or um, if they've just resigned themselves to like not caring about what I write, but they have never said, "Hey, I read this thing and it it didn't feel right," or it doesn't feel true, or I'm mad that you revealed it. They're not really like that. Also, I don't I don't think they read anything I write, which is like great, right? So
You
then
kind of can't do better than that in a family member as a writer.
they can read, but that's a conversation for another day. And then it leaves like interpersonal stuff. So like I'll write about my wife, and I'll give it to her before I send the essay to the editor and be like, okay, I made fun of you a lot. Tell me if anything crosses the line. And so far, she has not objected to anything. The one hard and fast rule is that I don't write about anybody's kids, including hers.
Yeah.
Um, Even though I live with them and have to deal with them every day, I make it a rule not to, because kind of it's like my nightmare to imagine future them coming to future me and being like, hey, remember that time you told the internet about my period? I hate you. I want to kill you. So I don't want that kind of static. And with my friends, I will change names or circumstances, and We're Never Meeting in Real Life, there's an essay called A Blues for Fred.
That's one of my favorite
So
things you've ever written.
mine too. It's about this boyfriend that I had who was so great, and I was like so awed by him and enamored of him, and I was like, oh man, this is like my big love. And then it didn't work out because he wanted to have kids, and that wasn't my ministry. And so we had to do the thing where it's like, I like you, but we got to split. So I decided to write about it, and I didn't tell him. And then I was about to send it to my editor, and I was like, I don't want to be this guy. So I sent it to him, and I was like, hey, I wrote this whole thing. I think it's really great. But if you hate it, and like I didn't change his name or anything, I'm like, if you hate it or you disagree with it, I'll throw it away. And so I sent it to him, and he emailed back that he loved it. And so then it went into the book. So I try to, and again, I don't, I am meanest to myself, right? In my writing, I try not to write about people in a shitty way. But when I do, it's people that I don't talk to anymore. Like, we don't have a relationship. And even those people, I will change a name or use an initial, or, I don't, these, no one chose, like 20 years ago, no one chose to like get involved with me knowing that one day I would put it in a book. Now people know, and they can be like, mm-mm. Can't talk to you. But like, I have respect, right? I'll be like, I'll say, if we're in an experience together and it's like something, like let's say you and I go to a retreat or something and it's insane, I'll be like, Liz, I'm about to write about this.
Or we might, as two writers, look at each other across the table and be like, almost like, you gonna finish that? Like, which one of us is going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Which one of us is going to write about this?
Yeah. And
who's got this one?
If yours is better, you can have it. Let's meet in a month with the essays, and we'll talk about who gets to publish theirs. But I try to, and again, I think it's been easy for me because I'm not an asshole to people,
Yeah.
It's easy to write about people when they know that it's not going to be, for lack of a better way to put it, like a hit piece.
Yeah.
It's just going to this is a funny description of our time together. And hopefully, like in Wow No Thank You, I wrote about my new friend Emily.
In the essay, are you familiar with my work? The best. The best story, the best, yeah. There's a
It
line,
was like
hang on, I'm going to pull it right up. There's a
uh,
line here where not the, are you familiar with my work moment, although that is extraordinary. Wait, let me see if I can find it. Your description, yeah, your description of this is an essay that Sam wrote about how hard it is to make friends as an adult. And how do you do that once you're a full grown up and someone else is a full grown up and you have lives? Like, how do you say, like, I like you and I want to be your friend? And you meet Emily at a wedding and you write about her. Emily is funny and smart and has a bubbly energy that is very appealing to me. And the more she talks, the more vivid my fantasy of us listening to somber podcasts in her minivan while driving to the petting zoo becomes.
we got to
Such a Sam Irby sentence. I love it.
We got to the fan petting zoo portion of the friendship. It took a humiliating incident for me to seal that deal, but like when I wrote about it, I was like, hey, I'm gonna write about that time I embarrassed myself at lunch before we were super close friends. And she loved it. It was like a badge of honor for her. So some people, I mean, then you got to be careful of the people who like seek you out because they
want to be immortalized. Well, I feel like, Sam, you just answered a kind of question for me. I've heard it said that there are only two kinds of writers, that you're either a celebrant or a cynic. And you're weirdly both.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the emotional tension in the essays that is so exciting to read, which is you are a total celebrant of humanity. Like you don't just love the people that you love the whole mess of us, like the whole shit tornado of people on earth trying to be whatever they're going to be. And you're incredibly cynical at the same time, or sardonic. Maybe cynical is not the right word. I don't know. But there's a blade inside that. There's a blade baked inside that cake, or there's a cake wrapped around that blade. I don't know which way it goes. Or the cake is in the shape of a blade. I'm not sure.
So people, I'm so like, I love to know what people are doing and like see them doing their stuff. Like I'm a person, I like to sit in the car in a parking lot and like watch people doing all their activities. I'm a creep, is I guess. But I also
there are laws against this, Sam. Maybe not in Michigan.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop. Always. It's always like I can never forget that the ground is like right there, so no matter how high you get, it's always like, but I can see the place I'm gonna crack my skull once I fall. And I try to keep that in the work. I mean, one, like earnestness and happiness are a little bit embarrassing to me, so there's like that. And I'm incredibly anxious all the time. And I make a lot of humiliating mistakes. And so, but I do like to, and I think that comes from, it's a response to like a lot of times you read stuff and you're like, oh man, this person is like smart and funny and they have it together, and that can feel great, like good for that bitch, but also like that's not me. So I never want to not be honest about that. You know what I mean? Like, sure, I'm making you laugh, but also I'm wearing a poise pad because every time I laugh, I piss myself. So it's like I've always, and it's real, right? Like, there's like people who are like.
It's amazing to sit here watching you laugh and knowing that that's happening in real time.
I smell like pee all the time. Immortalize it forever on stage. But I think we live in such a like weird time where you do get curate your image. And of course, like my books are curated, but it's like it's the kind of curation that's as close to real as you can get, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, here are some jokes that are going to make you laugh. Here are some experiences that are exciting, but
Yeah.
also, you know, I have an essay in mind for the book that I should be writing, but who knows when I'll
The one
start.
that's called I Know You Would Love Me If You Could Meet Me.
Yeah, but it's so I'm working on the Sex and the City reboot,
Yep.
which is like
That's
feels
amazing.
glamorous and great and exciting, but like it's me, right? So like we're on a Zoom with Sarah Jessica Parker and she talked to me and I started weeping. You know, everybody else
Oh.
like talking about work and I was like, you're beautiful. And then I had to like shut my camera off. So it's like I never want to not be that person and I never want to
Yeah.
give that person because that's what it is. You know, like I could write, you know, I got this glamorous job because I'm glamorous and I never said anything stupid. I never like farted with my mic unmuted. And that's not true. It's like really cool and exciting, but also I'm still a piece of shit, you know?
Well, you have said you said in one of your essays, and I was trying to find exactly where it is. I can't find it, so I'm going to paraphrase it. Oh, wait. Also, I wanted to just tell you, Perens, about um, trying to make a friend when you're old, and how incredibly awkward it is. This is how I tried to make friends with Rachel Cargle, who I met at an event and who I like revere and admire, and really wanted to be friends with. I like to draw and color. I always have colored pencils and pens with me, and most girls really like that. So
Oh, I'm cringing in advance.
I just went up to her and I asked her if she likes to color. I asked civil rights justice leader Rachel Carvel if she likes. I was like, "Do you like to draw? Do you like to color? Do you want to see my pens?" Because I mean, and you know what? She does, and she did. So you know,
But that's like
she
endearing. That's so sweet.
that's what
That's so
it was.
endearing and sweet. That's like a
It
nice.
was really it was
If
really
someone
sweet. It had a nice ending.
their colored,
Um,
I would be charmed.
wouldn't I mean, admit you want to get in there. Look at all the different.
Mm.
I mean, that's always within 2 feet of me is this many pens and pencils to offer you to play with.
Yeah, that's so sweet. See, my way of like relating to someone would be like to come out of the bathroom and be like, "How are you?" And you know they'd be like, "Okay, bye."
Or they'd be like, sit next to me for the rest of the night. Um, I got off on that thing. Okay, so in your marriage now, this is a question that I have, which is why I'm asking it. These are all questions that I have. Why do I have to preface my question with this is a question that I have? Sam, this is a question that I have.
Okay.
So much of your work has been about like various humiliations, um, deep, painful wounds. You have this alchemy of taking pain and turning like deep pain and turning it into great comedy. And now you're in this situation in your life where, and the New York Times review that you didn't read mentioned this and said, this is she's at a softer point in her life, right? Like you have a really, what sounds like a really loving partner now, and you're being appreciated, so it's hard. Like I would imagine it's harder to find material to write about being like dumped, disrespected, degraded, and humiliated when you've got somebody living with you who puts your nighttime banana next to your bed and a glass of water and lays your pajamas out and obviously thinks you're wonderful and cares about you. And I think like most of your readers, I was so happy when that happened for you. Like I was like, oh, this is, first of all, what a good idea to go to women. Like what a good idea to
Oh,
to like
well,
I'm also for that idea. What a good idea. But how does it impact? Do you feel there's a pressure on you? I guess the question I have is, do you feel like there's a pressure from your readers that there's a certain thing that they expect from a Sam Irby essay? And do you feel pressure to to produce that or to generate that? And is it harder if you're happier? Or is it also possible, as many of us know, that like really nice things can happen to us and we can still be just as fucked up and miserable inside, despite the
Yeah,
fact that it looks better on the outside? So anyway,
that
take
one.
that wherever you want. That one, okay?
Well, first of all, my wife is not that nice. She's
Mm.
nice, but she's in the other room, so I'm saying this so she can hear me. She's great, but she's not nice all the time. There's plenty for me to say. I think I don't feel pressured. Like I don't feel outside pressure. I am incredibly hard on myself, right? And I am always my biggest target, which I think, you know, I'll never run out of material because I'm always like fucking stuff up. I think what I write about has changed, right? But but my life has changed too in a way that provides new things to write about. Like I didn't get dumped by a boyfriend, but I did get dumped by Comedy Central, right? So I can write about that. And
Right.
I didn't humiliate myself on a date, but I did humiliate myself on that Zoom with Sarah Jessica Parker.
This is what they call, I have a friend who always says, as you get older and your life gets better, she says, I have problems now in areas of my life where I didn't used to have areas.
Right.
Like getting dumped by Comedy Central. But yeah, it's still the same emotional impact. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always gonna just be picking on myself, which I think is like cathartic. As cruel as it feels, it's also like cathartic for me. And I think too, like I got to a point in my life where I could start addressing some of my problems. Like I started going to therapy, which I don't love it, but I go. And again, why did I go to therapy? I was like, I could write about this. Um, and like I have a therapist who like makes me write a mantra every week that I have to like write throughout the week. So I've saved up all my mantras and I'm gonna, you know,
Oh, I
make.
bet that's very juicy material right there.
Oh,
Can you give us a sample? A couple sample mantras?
oh my God. One, she's very big on like taking a negative thing I say and making me flip it so that it's positive. So
Uh-huh.
this last week I was talking to her about like how I just deny myself nothing. I mean within reason, but like, I'm like, I'm gonna get 20 sweatshirts. And I was like, that's a bad thing to do. Why am I buying so many different like face washes? I only have one face. It takes you months to go through them. Why can't I be in a committed relationship with a face wash? I'm like going on. And it was like, well, instead of framing it like I'm a spendthrift idiot, which is how I put it, she was like, why not just say I'm adventurous and I like to try new things? And I was like, okay, but also, also I have a problem. So I'm gonna write about. And I don't remember what I had said to prompt this, but one of the mantras was, I'm safe and I'm protected. And then as soon as he gives it to me, I immediately start debunking it. Well, I'm not protected. You know? Me in therapy is like as much of a nightmare as me not in therapy. So, so like, there's always something for me to.
Sam, I don't want to tell you how to do your business, but that's a whole book. Like, that's a whole book. I want like transcripts of like, and the internal dialogue underneath it. Like,
You're
oh, I would read the shit out of that book
you're
if you
yeah.
wrote
It's
that.
tough. It's I just started this new essay about. I went to so my doctor is like very nice, and he was like, just I want you to talk to a nutritionist just because like people don't know how to eat. You know, like it's not a judgment thing. I want you know, blah blah blah. And like the nutritionist was really great, but she and like we were talking and she was like, okay, you gotta I want you to be vegetarian and blah blah. And I was like, okay, okay. And then she gave me homework and was like, yeah, I also want you to like keep a food log and chart your feelings every day. And I was like, done and done because I can put that in a book. So, so you're gonna get my like didn't have kids but was in a rage over this episode of Survivor. You're gonna get that. So like I so the so the material has changed, but I feel like it's evolving. You know, I'm gonna be 42 years old. I feel like I'm having some 42-year-olds like perimenopause and all that kind of stuff. Like, but also I don't improve that much, right? Like between these books, it's only a couple of years. I don't evolve that much. So there's still a lot of material there. It's just a little different.
Well, you have said, how can I be this old and still not know anything? And you've also often said that you are the opposite of a self-help writer, like that nobody's going to get, like nobody's going to read your book and then be like, oh, I see how I have to change my life,
But
you know?
my
But yeah,
like
go ahead.
my agent was like, you should do one of those like you know that book like girl wash your face, you know, like that kind of like sassy advicey book. And I was like, what would it be? Like, girl, eat more Doritos. Or I'm not tell anybody that's gonna help them. Mostly my goal is just to like make people laugh through whatever going through, which is what I try to do. I don't know how to make anything better, but I know how to make shit tolerable for 5 minutes.
But I think that makes it better, you know, and I think um I think the New York Times review that you didn't read was absolutely right when it said, like, Samantha Irby is back and we need her now more than ever, because your book came out like week one of like ground zero of quarantine. And and I remember reading interviews with you where you're like, why does anybody need my diarrhea book right now? And I was like, we all need your diarrhea book right now. Like this is when I need your diarrhea book. I mean, I always need your diarrhea book, but like quarantine, first week of a global pandemic, yes, please.
Well,
Like
get a
more
little.
of that.
We're gonna relive it a little in the next book because the QVC during lockdown. So, I mean, I got some tricks up these sleeves. It won't. It's not heartache, but it's something.
I also wanted to talk about racism because we're having so much fun. And
Mm-hmm.
that's always such a fun topic to get into.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like brings the room right up. But I was very moved by a letter that you wrote um, during the Black Lives Matter movement, which I hate to speak of it as though it's something that's not happening anymore, but I think you know what I mean. Where and it was your Substack letter that is normally about what's on Judge Mathis, and it was unlike anything else I saw anybody say at that time. And what you essentially said was like, I don't even know what to say about this, and I felt like at a place where everybody was being asked their opinions and everybody was giving opinions, and there were just swarms of opinions. You took a kind of a pass, but it was a pass of I don't know how to word this, but you were respectfully saying, I don't know enough about social science to answer these questions for you, and as I read it, I was thinking, I bet she was approached by people who wanted her response on this as a Black woman. What do you think about this happening in the country? And I thought it was very honest and humble that you we're like, this isn't my place, and I'm heartbroken right now, but there's not a lot more that I want to say about it. And when you write about race, you do it at a slant, a kind of, you come at it from the side. Even when you were just talking now about being in therapy, it was from reading We Are Never Meeting in Real Life that I really learned, because you wrote about your mother being the original strong Black woman. You weren't probably intending to educate me, but it was in reading reading that essay about how there is no culture of therapy or help for Black girls of your background, and that your suicide attempt in age 13 was literally met with like, lol, toughen up, and to that note, I just want to put a plug in, everybody. If you don't know about the Loveland Foundation that Rachel Cargill started, which I would suggest that you all donate to, which is an incredible foundation that pays for therapy for Black girls and women, look it up. But yeah, anyway, I'm interested in the way that you tackle race. Is always the sentence construction that people use, and I dislike that because it's just, I don't know, I want to find another way to say it, but where you see your place in that conversation, and where you don't see your place in that conversation, and how you decide to thread that impossible needle.
So I want to start by saying that I was born in 1980, and my mom was like almost 40 when I was born, which will maybe like give some context to the like toughen up of it all. Like, this was a long time ago, with a person who, I mean, she was old at the time, and so I'm sure that attitudes have evolved. I'm not sure how much, but it definitely was like, talk about your feelings, you better go to work. And I still see that in myself sometimes, where, I'll hear somebody like going on, and my first thought is, get a job. Like, don't you have a bill to pay, which is just like a holdover from that old stuff. um I so I feel like everything, it's interesting, like when everybody wants like someone who like has a platform to be an armchair social scientist. And
Yeah.
I really, it's weird to me when we ask it of people who should really shut the fuck up and listen to somebody else. Like, I am always, at the beginning of our talk, you said that I give a lot of disclaimers. And I think one of the reasons I do that is because now it's, well, not, who knows, now, yesterday, tomorrow, it's, it, we give so much weight to like what people say who maybe we shouldn't be listening to. And I do want to remind people, like, don't ask me about the news. I don't watch the news. I have not read a history book since 1997. Like, somebody tagged me once in like an Instagram review of my book. I didn't realize that's what it was. So I like clicked on it, and there was a person in her comments who was like, I like the book, but I was disappointed in the lack of race and class analysis. And I was like, that book has a fucking like monkey on the front, or whatever the fuck book. Like, you better go to Ta-Nehisi Coates for that. Like, that's not what I do. Why do I have to do that? I just want to get these jokes off. Did you notice the part where I was writing about what I put in the toilet? If I was offering political analysis, you should be like, Sam, you got to shut the fuck up. The people went to college for this. So I am keenly aware of what I know and what I don't know. One of the things I don't know is anything smart or important that needs to be told to other people, right? I saw this tweet once. I deactivated my Twitter because there was too much, but I saw this tweet that was like 2 days before I deactivated. That was like, we weren't meant to know this many people's opinions.
Mm.
Really,
Wow.
we weren't. Not about everything, right? I
Right.
listen to an expert talk about what they know. I don't want to listen to like, my homeboy talk about. Some people I see posting vaccine shit. I'm like, we can be together. I know what you got. Shut up. So I am hesitant because, well, and because I do have a platform. You feel like, or I feel like I gotta be,
Yeah.
I be out here just saying shit I don't know and having people believe it because, a bunch of like bots follow me or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's like part of it. I feel like we gotta let the teachers teach and let the clowns make jokes. That's what I'm here to do. I don't want to do more than I'm actually like capable of doing and can be held accountable for, right? So as for the race of it all, I I mean, as a Black person, like everything I do is something something Black. And again, I'm not a Black person who studied anything about like Black history. I took the same class as everybody else took. Um, I don't know that my skin has enlightened me any more about like serious historical facts than anyone else. But I am writing from my Black experience, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think like one of the things about like what I do, like writing about mental health, and again, these are things like when I was a kid that Black people just didn't get into. Like, my oldest sister is 60, and I just like laugh thinking like asking her if she'd ever consider going to therapy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm out here writing about being mentally ill and writing about my experiences as a Black person in a universal way, or in the way that feels most real to me, I think is like doing good work. I am not, and I don't begrudge anyone who does this. It's not my ministry to be like, as a Black woman, this is how the earth affects me. You know what I mean? I'm just like, that as an anxious, I got so many margins, Liz, right? Anxious, mentally ill, bisexual, fat, Black. It's like all those things. It's like, this is just the shit I'm going through. Um, and again, there are like scholars who write about race stuff in a scholarly way. And like, I'll read their books for like that critical analysis. And you can too. But if you're coming to me, you're getting some jokes. And it's not that there's not things under the surface, right? Like there aren't lessons being taught under the surface. Like
Yeah.
a takeaway is like, oh, this is informing me about this Black person's experience that I may, as a white person, that you might not have. But it's just not me to be like, as a Black, that's not. I mean, you can see it. You know who wrote it. Or something like that. So I'm always, again, my work is always going to be Black work because I made it. But it's going to be like Black funny work, you know?
That is such a great answer. And I also think it's very rare that for anybody in this moment when everyone is trying to seize as much platform as they can and as much legitimacy as they can, to be like, yeah, it's not really my, that's not really my field. People don't say that. I just want you to know that, Sam. People don't say that. They're like, well, since you
But
asked.
one of my biggest hang-ups, fears, whatever, is being caught, being the emperor caught with no clothes. And there's no quicker way to fully humiliate yourself than to take on a task that you're not cut out to do
Yeah.
and then embarrass yourself in front of people. I don't want to embarrass myself in front of the people I live with, let alone the entire internet. So I try to stay where I'm best acquainted, which is like near the bottom with all the, with my clown shoes squeaking. You know what I mean?
Near the bottom, says the number one New York Times bestselling author,
Well,
Samantha Irby.
near the near cultural the cultural bottom. There's like the scholars and the news people up here and like academics and stuff. And then, down toward the bottom are like the people who still have blogs in 2021, which is me.
I interviewed Tom Waits once years ago
Oh,
for a GQ article when I was a journalist, and he said the greatest thing about creativity. He said people get really intimidated because their eyes are always looking at the aerialists at the top of the circus tent in the spotlight, the amazing, like shining luminaries doing this incredible work. But they forget that it's not just a huge circus tent, it's a circus train cart. There's so many different places where you can come in and be in show business. And he
mhm,
said, I might not be, because he was saying like he used to kind of want to be Bruce Springsteen,
mhm.
and he's like, but like I'm never, I can't be Bruce Springsteen. I'm Tom Waits, like I
You gotta
can't
know
sell
your,
on.
you gotta
You
know
got to know
your
who you are.
limitation.
And he's like, I might not be able to, he's like, I might not be able to stand, like do backflips on the trapeze at the top of the circus tent, but I can play guitar with my feet in the corner, and he's like, and that's pretty cool. I just get to be here, like doing my piece of the thing that I do.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really a generous and beautiful way to see it. Um, I hope that you guys aren't distracted by the ice cream truck outside my door. Do you hear it?
No.
No, just stop.
Mm-mm.
You hear that? There's a school right next door,
Are
so that's happening. I know you have to go because you have stepmom duties to do, and I
uh,
want to talk to you literally forever, but I want to ask you, sorry, go ahead.
I just said this was so great.
I want to ask you one last question, which is, Junot Diaz said one time in an interview about the long break that he took between writing Drown and writing The Incredible Life of Oscar Wilde. I probably don't even have the full title correct on that, but he was so shocked to be to have had such success, and he said it actually shut him down for a while because he couldn't. He said nothing about the way that I was raised or where I came from had ever taught me how to receive love, and to suddenly be loved by hundreds of thousands of people was like his system almost couldn't handle it, and I wonder if you are able at this point in your life to absorb and digest how much we love you, because we really love you so much.
I can't. I almost like my natural inclination is to try to talk you out of it and tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't.
Which
I,
weirdly just makes us love you more, so it doesn't work.
it's always, I just have like a constant loop of my flaws, you know? It's like, Sam, I love you. Well, I didn't brush my teeth before bed last night. Could you love a person who does that 6 nights in a row? It's always something. I again, no, I will. I'm always like my biggest critic. I do appreciate, like, I can look at like sales numbers, right, and like the New York Times thing, and like know that people are out there and appreciate it. But I will never stop like trying to earn it. You know, I never want, I never will, because I don't think it's possible, like, take for granted that people in, when so many things are competing for your attention, like that people will spend not only their time but their money on something that I've made. So like I there's a part of my brain that, yes, understands it and appreciates it, but like there's a bigger part of my brain that's like, you know they'll stop if you fuck up in the next book sucks, right? And I don't ever want to not be that person. I always want to be the person who's like, that shit could have been a little funnier. Um, until it's time to quit, and then I'll just like go work at Walgreens or something and not think about it ever again. But I get it, I appreciate it, but I'm gonna keep working to earn it.
Everybody, if you could just send up all the love hearts that you have for Sam Irby. Um, there they come up down the corner. We adore you. Hang on. I want to take a selfie to use as the picture for,
Okay.
it's such a dumb thing. I have to do it. Otherwise, I'll get a terrible picture of us like this. So, okay, put on your photo face. You're like, this is my only face. Did I get it? I don't know if I got it. All right, I think I got it. I heard it. Okay. Really, really bad goodbye.
No, it was
I
really
love you, Sam
good.
Irby.
You are the best. I love you. I'm gonna call my book "Fart, Gay, Die" in honor of
I love that you use gay as a verb.
or what's Big Magic. I'm gonna call my next one "Small Tragic" or something. Homage to you. I mean, I know this was about me, but I'm a huge fan of yours.
Well, you've lived in my computer, in my heart, in my mind, and on my bookshelf for many years. So I'm just so happy that you did this for me and with us. And we all just love the shit out of you. That's just the way it is. You're doomed to be loved by us.
Well, I smell funny and hate myself. It'll all work out.
That's good luck on your book. We can't wait to read it. Bye.
Bye, everybody.